Hey, what is up guys? Guitar Rock here, welcome back to another brown dust video. Alright, so let's continue on with the State of the Octos part 2 right here. But before that, gonna get this 5-star random mercenary Lumen. Wow, a Lumen. That's something that I don't expect to see at all. Alright, so a +1 Lumen coming right up. Alright, so just like in my previous video which I did, the State of the Octos in the early 2020s part 1. If you guys have not checked that out yet, I'll link it in the description below. So basically, the same thing I'm going to say right there, I'm going to carry it over. I will give each of these Octos, the Gacha Octos, a rating system. Alright, so I've already covered Seto, Beliaf, Mamonair, and Velfren. So if you want to know their rating currently in the meta right now, go check on that video. Alright, so right here in this video, I'll be talking about Lucius, Levia, Vows, and Asmode. So this is all based on my personal opinion, based on how well they are performing currently in terms of the meta right now. Alright, so we are going to have Glacia and Christina coming real soon, in less than a week's time. So hopefully, I will be taking that into consideration as well when I'm judging the current Octos, based on that as well. Because I do think that Glacia +15 and Christina +15 is going to switch the meta up a little bit in terms of certain units being more relevant than others. So for those of you who have joined the discussion in the comment section regarding the part 1 series of it, appreciate it, love all the comments, you know, and the feedback. So yeah, hopefully we can bring on that discussion into this video as well. Alright, so let's start off. We're gonna go from left to right as always. We're gonna start off with Lucius. Okay, so Lucius, man, Lucius. He's the holy trinity of defenders in Brown Dust. Essentially a Brown Dust god. Like, till today, from the day he's released till today, he's still relevant in the meta. So that speaks on its own in terms of how strong he is. In terms of, you know, one of the best legendary for defenders. There's just no debate. There's no debate. Grand Hill there, ha! Mamonair +10, ha! All of those are just mere pawns at the hands of Lucius. Alright, compared to Lucius, man, he can take Levia's hit, no problem, soak them in without any hesitation. His only counters is like 4-star, Nia, and BDMN, surprisingly. But other than that, in terms of the meta right now, Lucius is pretty strong. He's pretty strong. Until Christina comes, and I did say that I will take that into consideration. So Christina, once she receives a +15, obviously I'm going to make a video on that. She's going to have 5 multi-hit. So a Christina's combo literally can obliterate a Lucius easily. So with Christina being present in the meta once again, I do believe that we are going to see a decline in terms of Lucius's usage. Alright, so he's not going to go obsolete. Of course, he's still very strong, but I do have to take that into consideration because a weakened Lucius that has his Death Guard activated, most of the time, Christina is going to just remove him instantly. Alright, so Lucius, what makes him so strong is you don't really have to invest in him. Alright, if you get him at +0, you can literally leave him at +0. You don't even need to awaken him. You don't even need to level him up. What makes him so strong is this skill right here. He's going to die one time and he has Death Guard. So Death Guard means that after you bring his health down to 0, he will revive and has 4 more basically hits. Alright, so he can be hit for 4 more times. Which is why the most consistent way for you to basically rid off Lucius is to use multi-hit units. Nia, VDMN, and Christina coming soon. We don't have that much in terms of 5 stars. We used to have Foxy. Foxy used to be really strong in the meta. But because Foxy is a skip, most players can just, you know, place a Lucius in front and place 1 more unit behind Lucius. And most of the time, Foxy will end up hitting someone else. And Foxy is just really weak in the meta right now. So Wilhelmina is one of the best counters to Lucius last time. 3 multi-hit. Not going to be enough to obliterate Lucius immediately. But hitting 3 times is going to help a lot in removing Lucius fast enough from the lane that he's trying to protect. But with the existence of Rafitia +12, and you know, just Rafitia in general, is a perfect counter to Wilhelmina. Wilhelmina dies easily to any form of reflective counter. So that brings Lucius in the current meta right now. Currently, in terms of the face of Asmode, Dalvi, Angelica, Levia, Lucius can take hits from them no problem at all. Alright, so Lucius is still regarded as one of the best tanks in the game that you can obtain without much investment needed. At +0, what more do you want? With all of those amazing criteria for being an awesome epic defender, Lucius should be a 10 out of 10, right? Not really. Alright, he's not without his downfalls, like I mentioned, weak to multi-hit. He doesn't deal much damage in return. So Gran, for example, is a solid defender, but she can also output a decent amount of damage. Same can be said for Benshina. Benshina is a very solid defender and can also output an incredible amount of damage, insane amount of damage, can destroy any units without 100% defense easily. So those are features that Lucius does not. And also, one of the most prominent and important things in a tank perhaps is the ability to taunt. So Lucius does not have that. Obviously you can use something like a Indolin Lucius currently, but of course in the future we're going to have something like an Albion. Perhaps we'll see an Albion Lucius, but right now in the current meta, I would say Lucius is a 9 out of 10. Alright, again, he's not perfect. He does have his drawbacks, shortcomings, things like that, but definitely he's still a must for most formations. Alright, so if you are on a budget, you don't really want to try to recruit a Glacier +15, Lucius is one of the best thing you can try to gamble upon. Obviously, you're gonna need to try to gamble him and obtain him from the Legend Scrolls. So he's still one of the most sought after units till today, since the day of his release. So that's just insane considering that the game has come a long way since the release of the Dominus Octos. So Lucius till today is still the goal for most veteran players, even most veterans, some of my guildmates who have been playing the game for a while now, almost 1.5 years, still have not recruited Lucius and they are still trying to recruit him. Obviously it's not going to be easy because you have that 0.2% chance lock behind it. But definitely for those of you who have Lucius, he's going to be the backbone in tanking all the hits in your formation. Alright, so moving on to the next one, we have Levia. Now Levia is really in an interesting spot. So for a while now, she has always been dominant ever since her release. Alright, so she's one of the best mage in the game, period. Alright, so she's the perfect example of how a magician should be. She needs 1 round to charge up. Alright, on round 2 she's gonna be able to hit and anything that she hits is gonna die. Alright, the only counter to her is perhaps Lucius, and we have Glacier coming soon, which is going to counter her extremely hard. So I'm gonna take that into consideration as well, because right now in the meta, Levia is one of the few units that can consistently counter things like Grand Hildair, Benshina, Mamone +10, like those annoying tanky units with ease. Alright, Levia just does that with ease. You know what's the secret? She doesn't need buffs. Yeah, that's pretty broken if you think about it. Doesn't need buffs. Oh, there's more. She doesn't need skill level. What? Really? She can do that at +0? Wow, she can get rid of Grand Hildair +15 at +0? Wow, amazing design of a character. A +15 Dalvi, alright, you're gonna need to invest in that. A +15 Alec, things that you really need to invest in. Those units struggle to one-shot a Grand Hildair +15. And Levia can do it without any buffs, number 1, and without any skill level, number 2. So these two things makes her one of the best mage in the game. Alright, so countering tanks, that's her forte for sure, until Glacier comes, of course. So in the current meta right now, she's really strong. The only place where she struggles right now is survivability. Levia's skill, I would say, is really outclassed in the current meta because it's supposed to help her to tank hits. So for example, this skill right here, reflective counter. So let's look at +10. So she has a debuff immunity, of course, as her awakening skill, and she has advanced masochism, which helps her to reduce incoming damage and of course heals her HP. And of course she has some sort of nullifier and curse the enemies and things of whatnot. So all of these combined is supposed to make her tankier, but she's not. She's just extremely weak right now. If you place her in a vulnerable spot, any Dalvi or Taylor or Barbara can one-shot her easily. Alright, so talk about any of the meta warriors right now, she's gonna die pretty easily. So that's the downside that she has. At least Narthus has 100% defense, at higher skill level, which Levia does not. So Levia still has to rely on proper positioning to make her work. So she's not exactly perfect. Of course, in most formations, she's gonna be one of the best way to deal with Grand Hildir right now. Plus 10 is where she gets an insane absurd amount of range, and she has the ability to instantly remove any energy guard as the main target. So Valfront plus 10, Mamone plus 10, there's no way they will survive a Levia plus 10. So right now, the main problem with Levia is the ability of her to get taunted. Alright, so this might not be that huge, you might think, but it's actually quite big considering that she can't do what Nartus can. So let's compare both Levia and Nartus right now. Alright, so Levia gets taunted, Nartus doesn't get taunt. So what does this taunt thing do, right? So if enemy has a taunter, like a Cowley for example, Levia will end up hitting that Cowley. And that's fine and all, right? Round 2, Cowley dead. Levia get rid of Cowley. But the problem is the next time Levia will attack is in round 4. Alright, seldom in a match, especially in a higher level match where you get to see like mages move again in round 4. It's very rarely. Usually round 3 is where most of the battles will end. Round 4, it's really hard for something like a Levia to basically shine. She either gets stuck at a Lucius in that lane because she hits the most front, or she's gonna hit a taunter. So that's just her main problems right now. She needs another mage to combo or pair with. Alright, for example, you use a Levia and a Nartus, Nartus Levia, or a Levia and Katarine of some sort. So which is why you see a lot of people going for the mage formation of Levia, Nartus, Katarine a lot. But with the existence of Glacier coming up soon, I don't think she's gonna be able to do much. And she's gonna probably take a short dip in the usage rate. I wouldn't say that she's gonna drop completely, but because of how dominant Nartus is right now. So bringing back the concept that I mentioned, round 4, Levia will get to attack again. So round 2, round 4. Whereas Nartus at plus 12 will be able to attack every single round. So it makes sense for something like Nartus to be more dominant, taunt ignore, and also the ability to attack every single round. So Levia, they really need to make her tanky, of course, if they ever want to make her relevant again. So right now in terms of positioning, she's just gonna get destroyed left and right, up and down. Alright, there's nothing that cannot one-shot Levia anymore. I've even seen a Cry one-shotting Levia before. So it's just something that most players have to consider. So now, if you are new to the game, having Levia at plus 0 is fine. And in fact, that's going to be one of your best solutions to deal with like super high HP tanks, something like Cowley, Banshina, or even Grand Hildir consistently. Now, without Levia in your formation, you're going to suffer against those particular units if you don't have any other methods that can deal with them, which makes Levia almost equally as important as Lucius. Now, like I mentioned earlier, if your Levia is below plus 10, she's just so weak because she can only hit one character. Her range is just not big enough to be able to one-shot at least 2. So that's where the real big struggle comes in. So to be fair, I think she deserves 2 sort of rating. So Levia plus 10, I will rate her at an 8 out of 10. Alright, so anything below Levia plus 10, I would honestly rate her at a 7 out of 10 at most. So the lack of range is definitely a huge deal, especially if you're trying to get rid of tanks that is positioned in alignment to a Dalvi or some sort, which is what most players do. So getting rid of a 100% defense unit and a taunter is definitely a much bigger deal than just getting rid of a taunter. So ideally, having Levia plus 10 is almost as crucial as having Nartus plus 12 in the higher PvP meta. And again, that's just my opinion. Alright, so let's move on to the next one, Vows. Alright, so we need to talk about her for a little bit because this is something that I think many players seem to misunderstood the concept of whether she's good or bad. Because what happens is most players, I would say 80% of the players out there, they just skill up their Vows to up to plus 2. Alright, and they will leave it at there. So this is where most players' judgment comes in. So they are basing off their judgment based off a Vows at plus 2. So not many players, especially at the lower ranks, have seen what a Vows plus 10 is capable of. So this is something that I want to highlight for a little bit. So she's really strong. In fact, I do think that she has one of the highest damage for a warrior. Alright, so higher than Edith, higher than Taylor, higher than anyone else. Right now, if you're willing to max skill your Vows, the output damage is just incredible. So +3 doesn't make sense for her because most of the time the healing that she gets doesn't really make sense because she either gets one-shotted or she survives, and depending on what is it that she's facing, she might or might not survive. She's very good in clearing bombs like those Zakan, Chalkel, Cubic. That's not going to work on her, which is what makes her Death Guard, her awakening skill, extremely unique because she receives sort of a Death Guard protection before she hits the enemy. So she's not going to die to counters, and she's not going to die to fixed damage counters as well. So 2 different form of counters right there. So she's in a very unique spot. Although the main struggle is in her skill itself. So while she does have this skill that can penetrate through incoming damage reduction, as mentioned right here, ignores enemies incoming damage reduction. So high skill Grand Hildair, Benshina, and Cowley, they die easily to a high skilled Vows. That's just how it is. But her 2 main weaknesses are she struggles against 100% defense units, which we are seeing much more right now in the meta compared to previously, and also her requirement in getting buffs as well. So that's something that she really needs, or else she's going to struggle. So in my opinion, if you have a Vows right now, I don't think it's worth building her. Alright, but for those players who already have her at really high skill level, perhaps at a +7 or +8, and then you are just waiting to +10 her, go ahead. She's one of the best warriors you can obtain right now, literally. Obviously, she's gonna get stuck in a lot of 100% defense units like I mentioned earlier, Dalvi, Angelica. She's gonna get stuck in those. But if you can time her attacks accordingly, if you can make her go late a little bit so that she hits the taunters, she's gonna be able to get rid of them pretty consistently. Alright, with the exception of Glacia, which is coming real soon, I don't think she can one-shot Glacia like she can with Benshina or Cowley. So that's just a thing that you have to take into consideration. So overall, she's still decently usable in the meta right now. So obviously we are seeing an increase in 100% defense units. Of course, once you climb higher, it's going to be a real struggle. But like I mentioned, if you know how to set up a formation that favors her in terms of her positioning, I think she's going to do pretty well. Alright, so overall, I'm going to rate Vows at a 7 out of 10. Alright, I do think that's fair enough. She's not like overly strong to the point that she counters every single one. But just think of her like a warrior form of Levia. So if you don't have Levia, for example, to get rid of something like a Grand Hildair at high skill level, you can easily use a Vows. Obviously, Vows will need buffs. You know, she will need good runes and things like that. But do keep in mind she's a warrior, so she doesn't need to charge to round 2 to be able to get rid of those pesky little taunters. Alright, so moving on to the next one, we have none other than Asmode. Let's have a look. What is Asmode all about? Now, Asmode is in a very weird spot right now. He's in a very weird spot. I wouldn't say that he's good. I wouldn't say he's bad either. He's just in a weird spot. So here's the thing. Same reason that goes with Vows. There's an increasing amount of 100% defense warriors up currently. Alright, so things like Dalvi, Angelica, and we're gonna get Adin soon. So those units will be able to counter Asmode. So Asmode struggles with high defense units. Alright, so high HP units Asmode does not struggle with. So just take Asmode, you know, just consider Asmode like an Angelica in some sort, right? He can one-shot high HP units, Cowley, Benshina, Grand Hildair, those units easily, of course. Granted that none of them go for shield runes, that's where he will start to struggle. So he doesn't have anything that he can provide defensively. He has the ability to pillage buffs, and that's about it, you know. That's the only benefit of using an Asmode. So right now in the meta, I'm going to compare him to one particular unit, which I do think is really similar to him. Obviously, they both are in different class, supporter and a warrior, but we're going to talk a bit about Asmode and Angelica right now. Let's talk about units that Asmode can kill. Alright, like I mentioned, high HP units, Cowley, Benshina, Grand Hildair. Granted that most of the time Asmode will trade with Grand Hildair and ended up dying. If you think about it for a second, Angelica can counter those units as well. And then, now you try to start to think, what's the requirement of using Asmode? Asmode needs a setup. He really needs a setup. If you don't have supporters to go along with him, he's not going to work well. And if you think about it, Angelica doesn't really need setup. Angelica can perform very well with only one buff. And the more you think of it, when it comes to defensive power, Asmode doesn't have any. And Angelica has 100% defense. When you start comparing both of them, in the current meta, you're gonna see Angelica as a much better unit. I know it's a bit weird that I'm comparing both of them because they are both different class. Yes, Asmode is a supporter, I'm aware of that. So Asmode doesn't really die to things like bombs, for example, right? Skeletons. So Asmode can get rid of them easily. So Asmode doesn't take a turn, unlike Angelica. But weighing in the pros and cons right now, in terms of the defensive power that Angelica has, 100% defense and will not die to Grand Hilder, depending on how relevant Grand Hilder is in your current server meta, in your current ranks, it might make sense to go for Angelica over Asmode. Alright, I'm just speaking from a perspective where if you have not invested in any of them and you can only pick one. So most of us already have some of these Octos or Devils at +9 and we're just waiting to upgrade them, and that is fine. But I want to rate this as in comparison to another unit at a similar skill level. Now, as an Asmode user myself, I can wholeheartedly say I would replace my +10 Asmode with the +12 Angelica. But obviously, that's more of a preference kind of thing. And I'm not saying that Asmode is bad. Again, it's just so easy to counter Asmode nowadays. Alright, you can just place a Lucius in front. You can place a 100% defense unit in front, like Dalvi or something like that. The only area where he really shines is where he doesn't really take a turn. You know, like he can counter, you know, those pesky, strong, high HP defenders which are placed in front. Alright, since his range is basically, he's the most front. Also, take note that Asmode really needs +6. If you do not have him at +6, it does not make sense to recruit him and use him at a +2 or +3. You're just going to need too much setup to make him work. Too much supporters. And that's going to be bad. Ideally, because you are sacrificing... When you bring in too much supporters, you're either sacrificing some of the warriors or defenders that you could have in your formation. So in most cases, it's not going to make much sense at all. So overall, in the meta right now, I know Christina is coming, I know Glacia is coming. I don't think those two will impact Asmode as much. But existence of Angelica and Dalvi is just so huge right now. Alright, so whenever they are placed in front, Asmode will not be able to do anything. And of course, Lucius is dominant everywhere. He used to be like really sought after, but right now in the current meta, he's still solid, above average, but he's not like god tier anymore. So I would say, at most, he's a 7 out of 10 for me. Alright, so with that being said, we have concluded this session of all the current Octos and their current state in the current meta right now in early 2020s. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know if there's anything you disagree upon. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Again, this is all based on my opinion in terms of the server I'm in, the ranks I'm in, and the meta that I observe in my current server. So feel free to discuss about it in the comments below. As always, if you're new to the channel, subscribe, give this video a like. I will see you guys in the next one. Have a nice day. Goodbye.